Welcome to day 6 of BEW Black Empowerment Week. NGA, Next Generation Alliance, would like to say thank you for everybody that's been following us the last 6 days, man. I'm excited about tonight. We got a great panel that's going to discuss and break down this video, the 2 videos that's been posted. Again, we say thank you for all of y'all that's been watching us the last 6 days. We could not do this without you. Thank you for liking and sharing and inviting people to the BEW. It's our first one in Rockingham County, and it's showing up, not the last one. Without further ado, because I don't want you to keep looking at my face, because I got some great people that want to get out a good message. So I ain't going to be long. I want to invite the PBJ, the Pink Butterfly Group. Their mission instills the confidence to be pink, pure and virtual, maintaining self-integrity with nobility and kindness through every step of butterfly transformation. They believe in keeping our community beautiful from the inside out through empowerment and volunteering. Pink Butterfly Group provides services for girls 9 through 17 in Rockingham County. Their primary purpose of this program is education, outreach, intervention, prevention, career readiness, and economic development. Among other things, one main focus is to address social and cultural issues affecting young girls. Hosting tonight, organizer founder Quatisha and assistant executive director Chloe. We want to say thank y'all for accepting our invite to BEW. We could not do this without y'all. The floor is yours. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mike. And hello, everyone. Again, my name is Chloe Carter, and I am the Assistant Director of the Pink Butterfly Group. We are honored and privileged to host tonight's film discussion on Push Out and Tell 'em We're Rising. We have a jam-packed agenda, so we hope that you can get comfortable. We want you to interact in the comment section. We're going to do our very best to get to all the comments and questions, but we have a great panel lined up. And again, we're just really excited to be here tonight to represent our community on this platform. And we just appreciate being here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Or I could keep talking. That's okay too. We're going to get a video queued up to introduce our first film. Or I get a cue from the back to keep talking. So, our film discussions tonight. Tell 'em We're Rising is a film about our HBCUs and the importance of them in our community. It talks about the history, where we've come from as a people, and where we're going. It's an important conversation to have. And the first part of making change is being aware of the need for it. So, Tell 'em We're Rising is very eye-opening, especially to our newer generations. And we hope that it opens up many eyes tonight and gets a conversation going. So, looks like our video is queued up, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Everybody, no more sleeping in bed. No more backwards thinking, time for thinking ahead. The world has changed so very much from what it used to be. There is so much hatred, war and poverty. Wake up, all you teachers, time to teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen to what you have to say. Cause they're the ones who's coming up, and the world is in their hands. So when you teach the children, teach them the very best you can. Won't get no better. Yeah. If you just let it be. The world won't get no better. We gotta change yeah. For you and me, for you and me, for you and me, for you and me.
I'm on mute. All right. Hope you enjoyed that little snippet. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our conversation. I'm going to start off with some introductions of our panelists to go ahead and get started. First up, we have Danielle Manns. Danielle Manns was born and raised in North Carolina. She graduated with honors from Moorhead High School in Eden, North Carolina, with a scholarship to North Carolina Agricultural Technical State University, Aggie Pride. She graduated with honors from A&T with a degree in mathematics, secondary education. Danielle moved to Maryland after college and began teaching. She graduated from Hood College in Frederick, Maryland, with a master's in education leadership. Danielle has been teaching now for 14 years as a high school math teacher in Maryland. She is currently a high school academic intervention and staff development. Danielle has 2 daughters, aged 7 and 10, and she enjoys spending time with family and friends, reading and listening to music. Danielle, welcome, and thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you for having me. First, Aggie Pride, Chloe, for sure.
Aggie Pride.
It's
First
good to
things
be
first.
here. Good to see you. Yeah, right. First things first.
Great. All right. I'm going to introduce our second panelist we have coming on, and that is Brian Carter. Brian Carter is a native of Robinson County, North Carolina. He was born and raised in the small city of Lumberton. He is also a graduate of North Carolina A&T, where he received both his bachelor's and master's degree. After college, he pursued a career in education and served as a college professor and department chair. Later on, he accepted a position as a government contractor. He has supported several federal agencies to include the United States Department of Agriculture, United States Agency for International Development, and the Department of Treasury, where he currently services as a contracting specialist. He is a husband, a father, and a man of God. And he's my husband. So welcome, Brian Carter.
Hello.
Thanks for joining.
Brian, I'm feeling that shirt. I got my A&T shirt on too. You know what I mean? We got to represent.
Gotta rip.
All right, next up we have Kristen Wing Coleman. Kristen Wing is a mentor for the Pink Butterfly Group. She's also a board member, and we're very happy to have her here as well. She has more than 10 years of experience working in the community to drive position change for all minorities in North Carolina. She was born and raised in Greensboro, North Carolina, and received her bachelor's degrees from East Carolina University, where she double majored in political science and ethnic studies. Kristen currently works as a community advocate for WellCare health plans and has advocated for many issues such as Medicaid transformation, equal voting rights, and criminal justice reform. She believes that her faith in God and having a clear vision along with a growth mindset are the major keys to her success. Kristen Wing Coleman.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So glad you can make it. Okay, next up we have Joshua Williams. Joshua Williams was born in rural North Carolina. He works or former Department of Justice Supervisory Adjudication Specialist, former DHS Senior Adjudicator, former Department of Defense Supervisor, former environmental researcher for US EPA. He has a master's and bachelor's degree from North Carolina A&T. And he's also an Army Iraq veteran. His hobbies are baking, hiking, and riding ATVs. Josh Williams, thank you for joining.
Appreciate it, Chloe. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Next, we have Sharika Harrison joining us. Sharika is a minister. She's a native of Eden, North Carolina. She attended also North Carolina A&T State University. We in here deep. She obtained her bachelor's of arts in psychology. She also attended Liberty University to obtain her master's in education as a professional school counselor. Minister Scales is currently enrolled at Virginia Union University in the divinity program at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology. She will confer that degree in May 2021. Minister Sharika.
Hello.
Hello.
Aggie
Pride. All right, awesome. We do have one more special guest. We had some tech difficulties, but actually I'm going to welcome our executive director and founder of the Pink Butterfly Group, Quatisha McMurtry, also an NCA&T student, previous student, as we all were. So welcome everybody, and thank you again for coming on the line to have this discussion. As I mentioned earlier, and as we saw through the film, how important it is to have historically Black colleges in our community. With all of us being graduates, all of us going to HBCUs. I think it's important that we shine a light on, our decisions, why, the meanings behind our choices to join that community, and really the history of it, the meaning behind it. So we have some great questions tonight to start our discussion.
So glad to join you all. Everybody can hear me good because my mic had some good. Yes. Thank you all so much for joining, committing to this time. This is an important issue, especially to us, the Pink Butterfly Group, education for our young people. So just jumping right in there, tell them we're rising. Okay, at a heavy film, taking us through history, where we are, where we've come from. And we're going to jump right into some questions, just to get your opinions, your reflections, see how you felt about those things, and just get the conversation started. So right off the bat, so we know that during slavery, those systems in power use ignorance, right, as a tool to keep Black people enslaved. So how do you think that education is used to perpetuate inequity today? And that's open to everybody. So if you feel to jump out there first, come on and just give us that your thoughts.
I think you can see it in when you're looking at how certain schools are have more resources, when you're looking at the way that lines are drawn in schools. And, me being a teacher and being in the school system, I see where there's parents who get upset and in arms when they start redistricting things because they don't want their kids to go to certain schools. So we still have lots of work that we need to do to make sure, that everyone has access to the same resources, to the same, instruction, all over the world. We still have some work to do. So, you can definitely see it when you're looking at school systems and the way lines are drawn and those kind of things. So we're not segregated, but we still have some work to do, because you can look at certain schools and know, this school is going to be predominantly white because of the location, the way the lines are drawn, and this school is predominantly Black schools. So we still have some work that we need to do, for sure, I think.
And just to, I was just gonna say, just to piggyback off what Danielle was saying, I actually live in Charlotte, which is one of the most segregated school districts, in the country. You can ask anybody, it's kind of the have and the have-nots as far as the school districts here. And, what that has done as far as perpetuating the inequalities is limited that economic mobility. We all know that, education is the key to being able to climb the social ladder So, when schools have less resources, they have, less extracurricular activities and all of that, that translates to, less opportunities for Black and Brown students. And, we've seen that all over.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I think I was just gonna kind of ride along with what Danielle was saying with standardized testing. We saw the curriculum change in North Carolina before I moved to Virginia. We saw it change to using a totally different format, but they did not change the type of testing, the end of grade testing that the students were doing. And so while we know that you have so many different outside environment and factors that affect our students as far as their learning, you still also have systems that are in place that are not built to allow our kids to excel. And so, you still deal with that part, even and even looking at the disparity and the differences between we're always looking at goals in our schools, how to close the achievement gap between African American males, and we kind of leave the females sitting out there. But and then that we saw that in one of our videos as well. But that's true, because that's always a goal on each school that I've been in. That has been their top two, if not the first, and the second goal is to close the achievement gap. But it's like, what are we going to do to close that gap? We're not looking to address any of the factors outside of the school environment, but you're wanting them to come in and perform at a level to reach your expectations. But there's nothing been put in place as far as how to train our teachers and our educators to be able to facilitate programs that will get our students up to par with what they need to excel. So I think it goes back to the resources as well.
Mm.
It's it's definitely something to be passionate about, especially when you continue to see it today, just in a different form. So I'm so thankful for this platform, the opportunity to talk about that, for the generation of people who are coming up with solutions, making the change and the difference. Wonderful responses. Is there anyone else who won't have something to contribute to that as well?
It's just interesting how far you might believe that we're removed from our history. And when you see a film like this and you really are able to connect the pieces, you're able to see the same trends happening, just in color versus black and white. It is chilling. It's very chilling. And we have the same, we have to have the same type of urgency behind supporting, the generations that come after us, because we are the catalyst for change. Just like our parents were and our grandparents were. We might not need to go to the back of the restaurant, but we've seen so many things that we've had to sacrifice, and seeing those limitations still is, I'm looking for the word, it's heartbreaking. But we are a strong people, though. So let's be clear about that,
But I think having conversations like this, right, is helpful, right? And then you have to realize that it takes more than just one person, right? It starts by having conversations and dialogue, and not just stopping at that, like really figuring out what kind of actions can we take. And as like I have kids, we're parents, teaching our children so that our children can then teach their friends and teach their children, right? So it's a constant thing, but we're doing our part to make sure that we do the best we can to move things forward.
Right.
One thing just to add on to that, Danielle, I think about, just like you said, training up our children and, really trying to expose them to the great things in life, but also, some of the warnings that, we should also expose them to. What's interesting is that what if you're someone that wasn't necessarily exposed to some of these same inequalities that we've seen, but maybe your children are? I think that might be a challenge too, I mean, just depending on the demographic, depending on, your childhood. And, so, it is, I know we're going to be tying this all into education, but not only educating yourself, of course, as a people in a culture, but in books, but also being educated in society,
Well,
being aware.
I think a lot of that plays into just knowing your history, knowing where you come from, the struggles and the success of your people. That's one thing we lack, at least I lacked growing up in public schools. One time a year, this month, February, we got to hear about Black history, Martin Luther King, George Washington Carver, Booker T. Washington, Frederick Douglass, just to name a few. But there were so many more. There were more modern people, Sidney Poitier, just to drop his name, like people that we didn't get to hear about, other successful people. And it's always been a narrative around our history and our education, what we are capable of, I can say, succeeding in. It's not very often that you see someone push African Americans to be mathematicians or to be engineers, unless you're Aggie, you can throw that out there. But it's a thing where being a Black man or a Black woman in this country, we are stigmatized. People see us and they make assumptions about us based off of misconceptions of us as a people. And because of the education system, that plays into a lot of it. Our history usually is told to us at the beginning of slavery, and then we get to civil rights, and that's kind of when the movement takes on a whole nother group of people. It takes on everybody. It's no longer focused on us. So I think that as far as again, ties us back to the education. It comes to us knowing who we are, where we come from, and knowing what we're capable of rising.
So it's funny you say that. I don't think I ever really had my first real Black history class until I went to A&T, right? Mm-hmm. Where I learned about not just about Frederick Douglass, but we talked about Black Wall Street and how our people are successful and there are success stories. It's not all about just the struggle. You know what I mean? For me, it was eye-opening to be, to go through school and you get pushed this message and this message and this. And so our kids are only getting so much history, right? And then depending on who they have as a teacher, that can vary as well, right? Because the curriculum isn't set up for them to be exposed to all of that, right? So for me, it was when I went to A&T and I went in my African American history class, I was like, wait, what? We know what I mean? We did all of this, and for me, it's why didn't someone say this to me all these years, right? We as a people are amazing and we have done some amazing things. And yes, we've overcome some things, but we need to move past just the stereotypical, Martin Luther King, Frederick Douglass. It's more people out there. Yeah.
You're right. Absolutely. So many more accomplishments. Mm-hmm. Go, Rika.
I was here to say, I feel the same way as Danielle. Of course, we both went to the same high school. We were in middle school together. And for me, when I went to A&T, it was almost like culture shock. And yes, I'm with other African Americans, but my experiences were actually in a predominantly white school. And so because I was a high achiever and I was placed in classes with those students, then I was recognized because of my level of I guess intelligence.
Intelligence.
But you turn around and you think, like, as a counselor, I ended up working back in the same school system, and you see the demographics change. It was predominantly white when we were there. Now it's like 50-50. And then you have your others coming in, such as your Hispanics and all of the others nationalities that are in the area. But you look at it, and I'm not as hype as I was in school, like, oh yeah, well, I'm working hard to perform. But now as a counselor, being in that area, it's like, but what about those who are not? What about those who are not behavior problems, but those who are not performing well, but those who fall in between the cracks? Who's pushing them? Who's looking at what's there for them? Who's exposing them to these different things? And I also agree with Mr. Carter, who says it's all about your history, because I'm like, Danielle, I didn't really understand Black history until I got outside of the small town of Eden. And it's like, what? Like, this exists? Why didn't my family tell me this? I know about my family, but I felt like I'm just existing. And then I had almost like an identity crisis. It's like, I was always told, you talk like a white girl. What does that mean? Because I'm educated? Like, you talk white? So what does that mean? What? And it's crazy, because I'm relearning myself along with learning what history means and how to implicate it and apply it, in the society in which I now live.
Absolutely. A couple of the comments that came over, someone mentioned that the curriculum needs to be changed. There was a dovetail to that someone said children need to see themselves, in the curriculum. And I think that really ties into what you said, Minister Sharika, that if you've gone to a predominantly white school all your life, that was me too, private school from all the way to high school, and then a predominantly white high school as well, public. I thought I was doing something going to public school, right? Then I went to A&T. Yeah, I was, wake up, you're Black. Always knew I was Black, but you're Black at HBCU. What a wonderful experience. I mean, I felt the same way. I was like, yes. But the thing is, it was so surprising, that we had our own, because you learn about, the huge and, great figures, but not all of them. You learn about a couple in 28 days.
And some kids don't even get 28 days, right? Like, some kids get a week depending on the teacher. Some kids get a day, a lesson depending on the teacher and how they want to take on that. So, you say they need to see themselves in the curriculum. They need to see them like people represented in the school that look like them as well, right? Like, we need more Black teachers. We need more Black administrators. Our kids need to see themselves in those roles as well.
Definitely. My mother was a school teacher, and fortunately for me, she was a history teacher. So regardless if I wanted them or not, I got a lot of those lessons at home. And she would try, to incorporate Black history into school. And she even started a Black History Club at one point. And, one thing I can say that I learned from her and saw through her efforts was that it wasn't always supported by administration. And Black male, at least in my school, I can't speak for anyone else, as far as not being over ISS or a coach, wasn't present in the classroom. And the Black teachers that we had, a lot of them were older and overworked, and so you had a lot of new teachers that came in who, I think, at least for me in my experience, started out with the right mentality, but slowly didn't seem to care anymore. It became about scores and not really engaging students. I reflect on just that experience of being in school and having, questions and, having teachers who were like, not part of my community, not understanding why I had the question, right? Or and on the other side, having teachers who were part of my community having such a high expectation for me that it almost made it impossible not to fail, you know?
Mhm. We had a comment come over. Virginia said that as someone who's not Black, she needed to learn too. That she learned
Right.
so much this week from Black Empowerment Week. And she's been exposed to so many things. And it is about awareness. It is about bringing these discussions to these platforms to hear from real people, have real experiences. We hear the rhetoric, right? If you're still turning on the news, you hear the same chain of emails that people have been on, right? Speaking the same things. And a lot of times there's so many things that are just missed. And so it is unfortunate in that case, but to Danielle's point, right? We've overcome so much. And these are the victories that we need to celebrate. And celebrate often, celebrate often.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Here's another. So during the film, we also learned about the rise of two national leaders, right? Both prominent African-American leaders during the Reconstruction. So Booker T. Washington and W.E. Du Bois, and their vastly different education philosophies, right? So if just to expound, again, it's open to you all on how you think these philosophies of the two may have hurt or helped Black people during this period.
Okay. I think both of their perspectives had a lot of validity. I don't think either one of their perspectives hurt Black people at all. I think if anything, it helped Black people. But I do see they were on two totally different sides as far as their approach. I think Booker T. Washington looked at things from a perspective of a man who had just come out of slavery and was trying to provide opportunities for his people. When he started the college there, it was at a time where, Black people didn't have a whole lot of opportunities. And the opportunities that were there were for a readily available group of people who were, able to work mechanically, agriculturally, as we were trying to move from an agricultural setting more to an industrial setting. And I think that with Brother W.E.B. Du Bois, he looked at things from a perspective of how he saw himself, as a part of that talented 10th. And, I do agree that, it was a good thing to push the young Black youth at that time to pursue opportunities where they could be accountants or lawyers or doctors, because we needed that in the community as well. But everybody can't be a doctor and everybody can't be a lawyer. We need somebody to build houses. We need somebody that can do masonry work, that can do can work on cars. We needed a labor force. And just to tie that into modern day now, I know a lot of people who, graduated and didn't work in their field right out of school. You had to get a job wherever you could to start paying that loan back. And in contrast, not to say that Tuskegee fits that narrative, but a lot of other people that took career paths or chose education fields that were more laid to somebody that could work in a blue collar field, someone that could do some drafting and design, things of that nature, and they are able to readily find employment a little faster, I think, especially during that time, because you may have got your law degree, but you might not be able to practice at the firm. You might have got the opportunity to be a mail clerk or something, versus somebody that, went and got a degree in carpentry and was able to go out and actually build the bench and the things that the judges might have sat on while they were holding court,
Yeah, it was interesting in the film, the perspective that they took on Booker T. Washington. And one of the, not quote, but one of the participants had mentioned that Booker T. Washington may have done our people a disservice with going the route of trade versus education. What do you think about that?
I don't think it was the trade piece of it that was the issue. I think it was more of the appeasement that was the issue. Let's appease the white folks so they'll leave us alone. And in doing that, I feel like he made it okay for them to feel like we were inferior and only worthy of certain jobs and certain trades. Whereas, you know, W.E.B. Du Bois, I feel like he kind of took the Black excellence approach is what I call it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can be educated. We can, you know, be doctors and lawyers, as Brian was stating. So overall, I personally do feel like it did more harm than good. But, you know, at the same time, we still did need those trade jobs, but I just feel like the manner in which, you know, he gave off that message was hurtful for the cause.
I agree with you. And from the perspective of that, I didn't like hearing him tap dance. I'll say it that way. But I'd argue the point that, you know, for that time and where he was at, coming out of slavery himself, his mentality, being educated and being a strong man, still was the mentality of someone that just came out of slavery and was oppressed. And so I think that he was doing the best he could, working in a society that told him he wasn't a man or that he was less than. And so I think he saw it from, and I don't know if he did, but I would like to think he saw it from a perspective of, we have to take the opportunities that are in front of us and accept what we can get, and then we'll do better when we can do better.
Like a right now thing. This is right now.
Yeah.
I think one was in the mindset of right now, we can make this, we can do this. And the other one was thinking like long term, far, you know, ahead, right? So I think that was what I saw the difference in those two opinions. And I agree with you, Brian. I don't think either one was necessarily wrong or right. It was just, like you said, coming out of slavery, what can I do right now to help my people right now? Whereas, you know, W.E.B. Du Bois was like, we got to think more than just right now. You know, long term, he's thinking about the progress of, you know, my children and my grandchildren, right? More than just in this moment.
You know, Josh, you are, from your bio, we saw that you are a pillar of Black excellence in the community, right? You've had several positions within the government, you know, and I wanted to get your take on just maybe that reflection of, you know, how you've progressed, the importance of maybe your HBCU experience and going that direction versus maybe alternatively going into, you know, an alternative field.
Well, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, I grew up in a small town, a town called Enfield, right? I remember, you know, we predominantly Black. You know, we had probably one white student in our whole school. So yeah, I didn't get those experiences like you guys got. You know, but with that said, you know, we didn't have the Black teachers. We didn't have a lot of Black teachers. Black History Month was still the same, just like you guys. I mean, it's public education. It's going to be that way. You know, it goes to the point where, you know, Black people and government are still nursing white people behavior, trying to make them feel, you know, don't want them to be intimidated by Black people. So, you know, what they do, they don't teach us our history. You know, they stole our history and don't want to teach us our history. You know, I remember growing up in Enfield, I seen a white man one day. I was at my grandmother's house. My grandmother was like, you can't look at him like that. You can't look at him like that. You know, So, she said, because you're too big and you're too black, you don't want to intimidate them. Some of the same thing the government and black people still do today, nurse black white people behavior or feelings or emotions. So, for a long time, I had to put on a smile. I had to put on a smile, going through the government, being called the N-word, it wasn't until I said, you know what, I'm not doing it anymore. You guys, Carter, right, man, Chloe might remember, I was arrested in Greensboro for doing nothing but walking to my car. Had 3 charges, didn't do anything, just being me. I had to go to court. This is the time I was a scientist with the EPA, and I remember going to court. And, I'm like, man, I didn't do anything, but I'm thinking, yeah, I'm about to go to jail for all this amount of time. Never did a crime in my life, But I remember just being in there. I said, I got to do something. So I went out. I posted a sign in front of the place where I was. Anybody seen anything? Call this number. Let my lawyer know everything that happened. It was the owner of the bar who said I had video showing that you didn't do anything. We played this video in court, and the judge asked the police officer, where was the assault? Where was the failure to disperse? What was the resisting arrest? None of that was in the video. So the police officer go and tell the judge that it was when he had to see my ID, which he never did. My ID fell in his shoe, and that was the assault, which didn't read the same as the police report. I'm telling you, it was that at that point where I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. My grandmother was wrong, and I know she was my elder. She was only just trying to protect me. But at that point, that's when I started to going through the government. I used the mentality of educated as I was educated, but I grew up in the projects. I had to combine, both of those mentalities, bring both of those words together just so I can achieve, and get through. And when people just seem like my demeanor at that time, I'm not about to hide who I am to satisfy this person, regardless of, what race they are. So I think we just have to get better, and to go on, our 2 brothers, we got to take steps though. Got to take steps. Some of us, we it's hard for us to learn. In my community where I grew up in, and then going to A&T, I had to take the lesson from A&T, listen to the lectures, go back to my apartment and teach myself the same thing over and over again, just so I could get it,
And I think that this ties back to, that the overall importance of knowing your history. And so I have a comment here from Merrill, the CEO of NC 100, and he said that Booker T. Washington meant well, but was propped up by non-Black dollars and had limited vision. W.E. Du Bois meant well, but I'd argue he contributed to this idea that trades work is somehow inferior to the arts and sciences. This thinking lends to perpetuating the house versus field Negro. Both men were flawed in their philosophy. I think that's a great comment. Great point. That's a great point. And what's interesting is that with that comment, I began to think about, that crabs in the bucket mentality, right? Pitting our cultures against one another. The nerd versus somebody who dropped out of school. You can turn them both into something very negative, and so that just causes that internal friction in our community.
And I think a lot of that friction we have in our community is because we're trying to figure out our own identities while we have others creating narratives for us. So, I remember as a youth, my mother would tell me all the time, she was not a big fan of certain types of music. And she would always tell me, if you listen to that stuff, you're going to act like that. And I didn't believe her at the time, but I realized, years later, once I got a little older, some of the things I listened to started to play into my persona of how I saw myself. And now I think I see it even more with the youth in modern day with some of this music that we have now. And so I think that to piggyback off what Josh was saying, as far as like how things are for us and our communities coming from Lumberton, where I'm from, which is probably number 2 in the state for crime. It's a if you ride through it, it looks great, but if you live there, you know what's going on. So, I grew up. Again, my mother's a teacher. My father was a lawyer when I was growing up, so I kind of grew up protected from certain things. But my friends, my peers, my family members were not. And so, where I'm from, we have a lot of how can I say this? A lot of separate but equal. Blacks kind of stay on one side of town, whites kind of stay on the other. We have a Native American tribe, the Lumbee Indians, which is really a strong tribe there. And we intermingle with one another, but there's a lot of separation there. And we all have to go to school together, though. And there's a lack of knowledge about each other's culture outside of what is presented on TV that's then later on perpetuated,
I think it's kind of like Josh was saying, and what it appears is like it's based off of our parents and our desire, our drive, our goal, and what we want out of it. Because, just listening to Josh, he's like, my grandmother said, you have to do this. And that I got that from my grandmother all the time. My great grandmother raised me. And so her experiences were definitely different. She dropped out of school at 13. She worked and raised, white people's children in the neighborhood. And so her perspective and how she tried to lead and guide me went against what my experiences were in the moment. It's like, but that was you. That's what you experienced. That's what you went through. And I think that's how it is for Booker T. Washington. And then W.E. Du Bois comes along and it's like, but we can do more. We can exist. And I think that's our mindset. For me, she's like, this is a white man's world. You can't do that. You can't do this. And I'm like, well, I know how to exist and I know how to get through this. And while I didn't necessarily know her experiences per se with her just saying those things, it still gave me the opportunity to say, okay, it put an awareness there that this can happen, this might happen, but I'm willing to take that extra step and try to see if I'll have a different outcome, because I want better for myself. More than what has been offered or the limitations that have been set. And so sometimes it's not even the coming from the outside. Sometimes it's coming from the inside, and you have to break that mental battle as well, because you're like, my family feels like I can't do it, so you're not going to do it either. What makes you think you're different than us, And so I think both of them, they had their places, but again, the experiences, if they both existed now, they probably would be more against some of the things that we do. So, I think the experience makes the difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have one of our last questions. Do you believe that an HBCU is a safer space for a Black American student compared to a predominantly white college? If so, how?
I think everybody's going to answer that.
Yeah, that's an easy one right there. I mean, it is. It's a lot safer. Like I said, you go to a predominantly white college, you're gonna have some folks that, just gonna call you out your name. You're gonna be ready to fight. You're gonna be ready to fight. And whose side you think the police at that university are gonna take? First, they're gonna question you and see if you go to that school. But I definitely agree that HBCU is a safer place. Because all the places that I've been called the N-word. I'm a big guy. You got to be brave. You got to be brave to call me the N-word. So the places that I've been called that, it was all it was predominantly white area. They had their surroundings. It was all their people. So yeah, I mean, I had to keep my cool because, I'm still in that grandmother mentality at that time, They need to check me now, though.
I like to say I agree with Josh 110% about HBCU being a safe place for African American students. Coming from where I'm from, again, triracial community, you come out with a bias and maybe some insecurity in yourself. And when you get to a HBCU where you're surrounded by people that look like you get a chance to come out your shell. You get a chance to explore who you are. You're able to network and meet so many different people from so many different places around the country. And it's a place where, you can feel confident and comfortable in your process, not just the education that you're getting, but the life experience that you're getting while you're there. And I think that's priceless for Black Americans. Not to say that you can have a good or a great experience at a predominantly white college, but what you experience at HBCU will only be experienced at HBCU, period.
I agree 100% as well with both guys. For me, it was like, I think at A&T, I learned who I was, right? And so my experience is very similar to Sharika and Chloe. Like, I went from predominantly white, being, like Sharika said, one of the smarter kids in the class, being the Black voice, right? When it came to issues, well, what do you think? Because you're Black, to being in a room full of people who look like me, who felt like me, who went through my experiences. I didn't have to question whether my teachers were out to get me. Because they looked like me, they wanted the best for me, they pushed me. I didn't have to go through things that I went through in elementary and middle school where teachers, accused me of copying other papers because I was bright. I didn't have to experience that. It was a place where I knew that this was my family, right? It was, to me, the first time I experienced family outside of my home, where it was genuine, it was real. And once you get that, it never leaves you. Like that feeling that you get at an HBCU, it never leaves you. You could graduate 40 years ago and you still get that same feeling when you talk about your HBCU.
I would agree with everyone. Unfortunately, I did not go to an HBCU. That's one of my life's regrets. If I could go back and do it all over again, I would have. But I would say there's a big difference. We had to seek out those Black spaces. We had the Black Student Union, we had the African Student Union, and that was about it. There were plenty of times where I would be the only Black person in the classroom. And, when that happens, they're looking at you to speak for the entire race. So, they're looking for you to say something profound every time you speak. And that's a lot of pressure, going to a predominantly white institution, it was a great experience. But, we didn't have those safe spaces and that feeling that you get, from HBCU. So.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When you reflect on your experience, and just first of all, did you ever get to go to a HBCU homecoming ever?
Well, I'm from Greensboro, so that makes me kind of honorary Aggie. So I did get to experience that piece of it.
So that wasn't really my question, but if you didn't, I was gonna feel bad for you. But,
I would drive to Greensboro, yes.
but going to the predominantly white college, like, was there anything that you felt that went lacking while you were there, outside of those, like you said, not having those Black spaces? Did you feel like you couldn't, I don't want to say couldn't be you, but did you feel like your experience as a Black student was somehow skewed or different than it would have been if you went somewhere else? I
would say, yeah. It's just kind of like, when you work in corporate America, you gotta switch, your different sides. Exactly. So it was like that. And then just, even, with my advisor, I didn't feel like she was as invested in my success, just to check in once a month, where I would speak to my friends at the HBCUs, and they're talking to their advisor like every week. And I'm like, man, what's going on? So, I do feel like I did miss out on some of that, And then how Josh stated, being called an N-word, experience all of that. One day, coming to class, coming to campus one day, man chased us down, told us to get out of the South. And I'm like, get out of the South? supposed to go. You know, I'm from the South.
I'm from the South.
You know, we would try to get into certain clubs, and you could only get into the clubs if you had a white person with you. So, you know, it's definitely a difference. So, if I could go back and do it again, I would have definitely chosen HBCU.
You know, to be honest, when I first filled out my college application, I applied to a couple. And originally, my first choice at that point in time, I had been accepted to ECU. And I was just motivated. I'm ready to go to college. I'm ready to go to school. You know, it's a good school. I'm excited. And so I ended up turning that down to go to A&T. My high school, we had Umoja, and I'll never forget Miss Johnson, Miss Nina Johnson. I know you're married now, but Miss Nina Johnson, you're out there. Thank you so much again, because you played a huge part in my decision to go to A&T. We took a trip during school with our Umoja club, and we went to A&T as seniors. And I was terrified. I was terrified. It looked so amazing, but there was so much going on that I hadn't previously been exposed to. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many people. Not like, oh, there's so many Black people, but there's so many people. But then, yes, there's so many Black people. Like, wow. And I was terrified from the sense that, who am I, right? Coming from predominantly white schools, who am I going to be here in this arena? You know, coming from, yes, you're the Black girl. So ultimately, my decision, though, to go to A&T, despite my initial fear, and to turn down my ECU acceptance, was because my grandmother, thank God, who is still here, Miss Helen Armour, my grandmother went and graduated from Shaw University. She pledged Zeta, and she always would talk about, you know, just her experience, you know, at Shaw University. And she talked about the story of how she got to that space, that her brother decided to work so that she could go to college. He took his opportunity and put it to the side so that she could go. And of course, she met my grandfather there, you know, and the rest is history. But that's what played into my decision, you know, just knowing that piece of history, that even if it's not played on TV, it's important for us as families to talk about it. One of my daughter's favorite times is bedtime. Not bedtime listening to stories, reading out of a book. She wants to hear stories from when I was little. And so that's so important. That's so important to pass these stories down to our children so that they can aspire to be like mommy or like grandma or have some of the same experience or better experiences. So I just wanted to tie that in because I think that's how we become empowered. That's how we become empowered. That's how we tell a new story. That's how we expose how powerful we are as Black people. That we're not threatening, we're passionate. That we're not aggressive, we're assertive. You know, we have to change the narrative, and we can only do that then with providing the awareness, with having these discussions.
Right.
Does anyone have any last comments? I think this was a great discussion.
I just like to jump. I like to jump on and say that as I reflect now, I think about my choices and my decisions. And I was about to go to college. It was kind of a similar thing. You know, my mom, and my dad, both in HBCUs. My dad went to A&T. Unfortunately, he didn't finish there, but he went to Fayetteville State, where my mother went, and that's where they met. And you know, just growing up, you know, it was always an Aggie, but it was a Bronco pride thing in my house growing up. And so I got to go to the Fayetteville State homecomings to get those experiences and to see my mom with her Soras and, you know, the Deltas, and I got to see the Alphas and the Qs, and you know, she would introduce me to her friends from back then, and I would get to meet, you know, this guy's a lawyer here, or this guy is a chief here, and this, and it was just seeing Black successful people was a great experience for me. In my household, starting with my grandmother was the first person in our family to go to college, but she didn't get a chance to finish. My mother shortly followed after her and actually finished college and got her degree in education. So for me growing up, it wasn't a thing that I was going to go to college. I always knew I was going to go, even though I wasn't the best student, honestly. But just having those experiences of seeing the HBCU and going made it something I had to do. I was fortunate enough to get into this summer program where I actually got to go to A&T and study the summer before graduation. And that cemented it for me. It was like, oh, I'm going to be here. Like, to use the young people's terms, it was lit. I was like, yeah, A&T is where it's at. You know, I had the best time I could ever have for a young man at, you know, 16, 17 years old. So I think that, you know, we have to create those type of experiences for our children and let them know that these places are places you can go, and that, you know, it'll take a dumb country boy and turn him into a successful young man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If I could be biased there, absolutely. So we have one last comment. I think that it puts a nice bow on this discussion. We're not going anywhere, but for this discussion, Ms. Portia Paris said that heroes are family, neighbors, us. And I think that's very, very important to know and understand the impact that we have on this generation and the next. So again, I want to thank the panelists for coming on to have this discussion. Again, we're not going anywhere. We are going to transition into our next discussion. We have some vendors coming on to highlight local Black business and areas of opportunity that we can pour into. But again, I want to thank Ms. Danielle Neely for coming on, for all of your contribution, Mr. Brian Carter, Minister Sharika Harrison, Josh Williams, Ms. Kristen Wing, of course, and of course, our PBG, Pink Butterfly Group founder, Quatisha McMurtry. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get transition. Thank you again. Stay with us. Maybe take a bio break, but absolutely you're gonna wanna stay tuned and see our local vendors. Thanks, everyone. All right. Here we have Miss Faith Cook. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
I am wonderful. I am well. Thank you so much for coming on. You have the honor of giving us or being our spotlight. I want to just give you a quick introduction. We're so happy that you're on tonight. Ms. Faith Cook is a native of Virginia, residing in Graham, North Carolina. She is the owner of Optimum MOA Services, a medical prior authorization service that contracts with private doctors' offices. She is a leader in her community and stands strong in fighting against social injustice. She works to try and meet the needs of the community and has started Light of Alamance, an organization that is geared to being the light in the midst of darkness for the community.
Yes.
Ms. Faith Cook, thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I've been enjoying all the discussions for this week. Yes, the Light of Alamance, we just started, I will say in November, early December. We are a small group right now, hoping to expand. We are definitely based on working in the community to find out what the needs are, the food insecurity, the housing insecurity, clothing insecurity, just being there to let people know that we are trying to build a relationship with the people in the community, because unity is everything. So that's one of my primary goals, to get all of the organizations that are in Alamance County working for the same cause to come together to make a change in the injustice that we're facing here. It's really bad when it comes to everything that's happening in Graham. It's been on national news. The arrest, I'm part of the Graham 12 that was arrested and pepper sprayed on Halloween for a voting protest that we were marching to the polls, and just for exercising our First Amendment rights, we were pepper sprayed. Kids were pepper sprayed, elders were pepper sprayed. So it's definitely a lot of sadness out here. There's a lot of distrust. There's a lot of people who don't believe that there's going to be a change. So our goal as a Light of Alamance is to try to keep people positive, try to let them know that we are here for them. We see them, we recognize them, we are their voice when they feel like that they can't speak. And just here to do whatever we can do to make a change. And hopefully it starts small, and then we can make the change in Alamance and have it spread throughout the state.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. What got you to this place where you felt that you needed to be the change?
I'll say God just knows that He just created me to serve. It's been a long journey for me to recognize what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. I work with women as well with domestic violence, and being a domestic violence survivor myself, and working with women to let them know that the past does not define them. What they've been through doesn't define them. And I made I would say a contract with God to say, you brought me out of that domestic violence situation, and I'm here to serve you. So whatever it is that I'm supposed to do, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be obedient, even if it scares the hell out of me. I'm going to be obedient to that. So I just started serving with women and pushing women to know that they are shaken and not broken. Whatever it is that you have been through, we may feel like we're broken. We may feel like all the puzzle pieces are just laid out on the ground and we can't figure out how to get that back together. But every single one of those pieces are a piece of who you are, is a piece of what makes you. It doesn't mean that you are less than. It doesn't matter. The anxiety, the depression, the fear, and that's with anything. So my goal and as a servant, I'm here to help people heal. And as a mother, my daughter was almost hit last August intentionally, and my goal is to make sure that we continue to fight, that we don't back down, that we don't say the struggle is too hard and there will never be a change. We may not see the change in this lifetime, but we can't give up. We have to keep fighting. And I'm just here to help serve and help people heal. I think it's important to activate your healing in order to get through and push through. I'm watching the Graham 12 cases start now, the 1031 arrests start, the cases are starting now, and it's a long road. It's definitely a long road. I'm facing a misdemeanor myself for singing "We Are Ready for Change" through a bullhorn, and I was arrested for starting a riot. So, something like that can make you discouraged to want to go out. But as the light, we have to shine in the midst of all this darkness, because they want to keep us shut. They want to shut our voices down. And that's not something that we are able to do. We've been shut down too long. We've been quiet for too long. And it is time to be heard, and be heard loud and clear in a graceful way if necessary. We can do it. We can do it gracefully. We don't have to be rioting. We don't have to do it that way.
Right.
But if we come together as a community, it's a lot of voices, and we just need to move smart.
I think that, your message transcends, that I'm just hearing you talk about your experience and the reason why you began this journey. You think about, just how your experience, it is the catalyst for change. Depending on where you've been and what, you've been exposed to, what that roots or seeds in you, what kind of roots grow from that. And it's important that the change that we push is one that we need, so to
Yes,
speak.
absolutely.
So what helps you stay encouraged? What helps you keep going? And I know you have hard days,
I do.
in the community, and you're working with people, you're hearing these stories that can do some psychological, things to you.
Yeah.
When you go home at night and you kick off your shoes and you just reflect. So what keeps you going?
My children, I believe, are, a big part of my motivation. The youth in the community, the youth in general. I hear one of them calling me right now. No, baby, get off the skateboard. I'm sorry, y'all. That's
Okay.
my 4-year-old.
Aren't we used to it? Are we used to it now?
I'm sorry. But
It's okay.
just when I first started, like, with activism, we were living still in Virginia, and I had my daughters out one night at VCU, HBCU. I had my daughters out at VCU for a Trayvon Martin rally. That was when, the tragedy of Trayvon Martin being killed. And I told them that night that we have to fight. And I let them know, I raised them in love. I raised them to understand revolutionary love and to not see color, but to understand, as a person of color, there are certain things that you're going to face. There are certain things you're going to come up against that your friends won't. Your friends of the other races won't have to face certain things that you have to face. So the motivation for me is to make sure that I expose them to what they need to be exposed to in a way where they understand why I do the work that I do, why I'm out in the streets with my fist up, why I have a bullhorn. Because if you blind them, if you keep them blinded from what's really happening out here, they're going to be totally caught off guard when they're adults and you're not there to say, hey, they're going to be out there and something happens, or they are faced with something and you're not there, and they're not going to know what to do because you didn't teach it. You didn't talk to them about it.
Right.
So my motivation is definitely with the youth. I want to start a Teen Summit program in the schools. They have all these electives and they have all these classes, like the different programs that they do once a month. I think they call them clubs, all the different clubs that are out there. I want to start a program for especially the middle school and the high school, a Teen Summit type program, to make sure that they talk about what's happening in their world, what they are recognizing. Not enough parents are having these conversations with our children. It's TikTok and Instagram and letting them be free, and we're not sitting them down.
Yeah.
And what happens is what happened to me. You turn 35 and anxiety and PTSD hits you. When something triggers you and you don't know what it was or why, because people don't talk about mental health to kids like they should. So I definitely stay motivated by keeping my kids. I just want better for the generations to come.
Absolutely. And that's why we're so thankful for people like you in the community, Ms. Cook. Your work, everyone doesn't choose that pathway. Right. And so, we must let brotherly love continue. We must encourage one another and love one another as a community to build each other up. So as you pour into your community, I hope that our viewers pour into you. We have your Venmo here on the screen, Light of Alamance.
Yes, yes, Light of Elements. I'm trying to get everything straight for getting the paperwork done for Secretary of State and trying to get the paperwork for 501c3 and trying to raise the funds for that. I want to start, my next goal is to start community days here. Like I said, I'm real passionate about the community, and we did a drive at Christmas for the homeless. It was the warmth bags, and we had coats and we had blankets and different things. And I get brainstorms of something that I want to do in the community, and I fly with it. And I trust in God to know that whatever the move is that I'm making, if He sent me that vision, then the vision will be it will be a success. So with that, we were able to hand out 100 bags in a matter of 2 weeks of coming up with the idea. So I definitely want to, uplift the homeless and let them know that we see you and we're here for you. We didn't just throw them a bag, we gift wrapped it and everything and made them feel special because they are. And I want to bring that work out in the community. And the next project that I'm working on is a lunch day in March. We're trying to gather the funds together to make sure that we can feed, just bring the community together and have, definitely for the homeless, but have the community come out, and we're going to have paperwork to find out what are your needs. What is it that, where is the insecurity? What is the lack where you live, and how can we help? And I think if we touch one, if we can help one and just keep helping one at a time, then we definitely can make a difference in the community.
Absolutely. Well, I couldn't agree more, and our viewers couldn't agree more. Lots of people saying, keep up the good work. Thank you for your work. I don't think it's that a coincidence at all that your name is Faith.
That is my foundation.
That's right. So we certainly appreciate you coming on. How can people get in contact with you and know what you're doing?
You can find me on Facebook at Faith Cook. You can actually, if anybody's interested that needs help with healing, and especially for my women out there who are in a dark place, who don't really know how to feel good about themselves again. I do have a journal called Activate Your Healing. It is on my website, which I just thought about, IamNowFaith.com. And, it's a 30-day workbook to focus on good affirmations, focus on positivity, focus on where you want to be instead of what has happened to you. You want to shine your light on what is to come. It's time to walk out of that darkness and walk into the light.
That's amazing. Amazing work. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing the spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, next spotlight, our next guest is Jessica Nicole Winston. Hello there.
Hi, Chloe. How are you doing?
I am well. Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I cannot complain, girl. Trying to stay warm, but I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Well, that can be a challenge.
Right.
Well, so happy to have you. Do you want to just tell us about yourself and share the spotlight?
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for this opportunity. And Faith, that work is amazing. So I cannot wait to kind of go a little deeper. I'm going to be visiting her page after this. But anyway, so my name is Jessica Winston, and I go by the Millionaire Midwife. That's like my brand business name. And I help entrepreneurs simplify their success. So I do that through creating branding and marketing that's both purposeful and profitable for them. So that's a little bit about me. I operate that whole business, or my whole business, on one core belief that success is really not hard, but it is strategic. So that's a little bit about me and what I do in the business world.
Wow. Yeah. That is amazing. So how did you get started?
So I got started because there was this there was this one-liner, this theme that ran with me giving unsolicited advice, if I'm quite honest. So it wasn't a college course or a class or somebody I looked up to right away and said, well, I want to do that. I want to be her. I want to mimic him. It was me giving people advice and them coming back to me saying, hey, what you said worked. And I was like, okay. And then I would do it again, of course, all unsolicited, might I add. And then it would work. And they would come back to me with this one-liner like, what you told me worked. So I literally went from running my mouth to running a business in strategy and consulting.
Wow. You know, as you were telling me the backstory is so amazing because, you know, how many times do we do that? How many times do we do that
Right.
as a people, as a culture, as women? And, you know, you really don't understand or see all the value in you, in your mind.
That's so true.
So it's amazing that you turned it into a business. What made you just take it to the next step, and what did that process look like?
Yeah. So honestly, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always knew that. I always had that type of drive in me. And so what I started doing earlier on was I started only taking jobs that would help benefit the area that I wanted to grow in. And so at first I thought I wanted to do real estate. So I was a leasing agent for a little while. I did property management for like 10 or 11 years. And then I was like, you know what? I like weddings now. And so I took a little understudy job. And then that was my first business. Actually, I was a wedding and event consultant, believe it or not. And so I did that for a little bit. But the theme for that was helping people make huge, big, scary sometimes, but life-altering decisions. And so I do that still, just in a different realm. So I don't know. It was really something that I said, you know what? I'm good at this. And I'm not only good at this, but I like doing it. And where I'm able to see the value and the benefit that I added to people. So I was like, okay, this is something that I think I want to do for me. And it's weird because you don't really ever go into business for yourself. You always go into business for the people that your business is supposed to help.
Right.
And so I was like, this is going to do it. It was the dual factor for me. So I was really excited about doing something I enjoy and do something that I know my clients or customers would definitely benefit from.
You know, I'm just in awe because, like I said, you know, you turn your mind, you know, in such a way that, you know, not only just this aspect, but like you said, you're going into business for the people.
Yeah.
To give so much of yourself. So, you know, I think about, you know, you doing the consulting, right? And you giving, pouring. Who's pouring into you? And
that's a good question.
Who's pouring into you?
That's a question. So thank God for my husband. His name is Reggie Winston. He actually owns a barbershop. And so I'm working there a lot of the times as well while working in my business. So it's such a blessing to have that opportunity. But he's definitely the one pouring inside of my cup. And, you know, really just reminding myself that, hey, you didn't really start this. You nurtured and were a good steward over this God-given gift. So something that God gave me. So making sure I had that connection with him and keeping that connection with him. I know it sounds cliche, but it's really true. You know, to understand, okay, my strength, my strategy, it comes from him. Yeah. And it always humbles me because it used to be a very shameful part of my story, me not being college educated, me not going to school for this or strategy or having this degree or this certificate or that one. But now it's a part of my shine. So it really was shame. Now it's a part of my shine. Like this is literally God downloaded, you know? And of course, taking the courses and classes I need now, which I believe is being a good steward over that gift, right. Studying and all that good stuff and about, you know, my industry. But at the same time, those two, God and my husband, those are the ones that are pouring into my cup for sure.
Sounds like my story. Yes, God and my husband as well. You know, to have a, you know, a support system, you need that to be able to walk in your purpose and in your gift.
Yes, God.
We give God glory over here. So I'm glad you mentioned that. It's wonderful to see, you know, someone in our community, not only doing what they love, but really helping people, just like Ms. Cook had come on. And so, thinking about that, the second part of my question about who pours into you is when you're ready to pour out, how is it that how can you, I think about, maybe what a day might be like in the life for you, you're pouring into other people, brainstorming and consulting. And how is it that you can determine, well, this is a great idea that, I want to give to someone. This is mine.
That's really good because I have fought with that so many times, especially understanding that you don't have to be the face of your business all the time. And there's so many people that have multiple businesses that aren't directly attached to them. I'm like, ooh, I could do this. You should hear me at the barbershop. Chloe, when I tell you I'm coming up with all sorts of stuff to give away to folk, it is crazy. But at the same time, I have to remember, which is funny because it is the beginning of a program that I have called the Brand Build Out. I have to really set the intention of my mission and my vision. And when things are not in line with that one, not that you can't have multiple or can't have something different, but as of right now with the Millionaire Midwife, my mission and my vision, and if it doesn't fit, then I have to say no. So that's kind of what I do. But it's interesting because intellectual property doesn't have a barcode. You cannot scan it and get, okay, this is $299. This is worth $3,000. This is worth $300,000. And so it is crazy knowing some people I've given like names and taglines and $1 million things for, which is crazy. But at the same time, it's still humbling. Like, God will use somebody like me, that doesn't necessarily have the credentials that other people do, or the connects or the audience that other people have, but just somebody that's willing to be like, I know what I'm doing. I know how I can help you. Come on, girl, let's schedule this strategy session. So yeah, there was a apartment community called Alta Blue, and I sat with the owners and came up with a new name and this new stuff. And so they had it and they ran with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I felt so special. So yeah, it's weird because the intellectual property doesn't have a barcode. You don't really have a specific place, where you can tally it up,
That's right.
You really don't.
That's right. We had a comment that said you have God credentials, and that's all you need.
Okay, I know that's right.
That's
God
right.
credentials. It's really all you need, and to make sure you're a good steward of that God-given gift by studying your craft, submitting yourself, surrendering your will and your vision the way you think it should work out when necessary. So yeah, it's a real thing. God credentials. Thank you, girl.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. So, I'm very interested, to see what it's like, to hear what it's like, a day in the shoes at Millionaire.
Yes.
What does that look like if someone contacts you and walk through your process?
Yes. Okay. So a day in the life for me can look like a bunch of things because it's really a creative process that we go through. So having to add structure to creativity is interesting. But one thing or a few things I like to make sure that are staples in the process with working for me is an allotted time, a quiet place, and girl, what I like to call my Beyonce boards. Let me show you my. So these make me feel like I call them Beyonce boards. They make me feel like the Beyonce of what I do. So there are tons of whiteboards, tons of white papers, poster boards that I'm going to write ideas off of. Some black ones too when I get a little fancy and I want to write in white. So I have boards, all of these things, everything I need, girl. I even have it right here. The sticky notes, the gathering some of these staples, which help me create better. Me, I'm very visual, so I need to write it out. So before I try to design you a website or before I try to pitch you a marketing plan, I'm going to write it out. It's going to be somewhere on a poster board. So people usually start with my discovery call. which is basically how they hear what I do. I hear what they need help with. And I either do one or two things. I'm sharing with them a service that can get them to their goal, or another service provider. So like a referral that can get them to their goal. After that, some people just like, look, I have this issue, this problem. And the great thing about me is I don't just give advice. I give the answer and the implementation. So it's not just, what would be cool? It's, hey, I've researched, I've seen, I've checked out, and you need to do this, 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 and this. And so that's a strategy session. Some people just need those. But one of my main joys right now is working with something I call Sharpen. It's a program I'm still developing that's going to help sharpen the competitive edge of entrepreneurs. So get them in front of their audience, keep them in front of their competition, and really hone on what they do, making them masters of it. So that's kind of a day in my life, kind of maybe the funnel system, I guess, throughout the Millionaire Midwife. But girl, it's a lot of coffee. It's a lot of prayer. It's a lot of sticky notes and a lot of Beyonce boards that goes into my day.
I love the concept of Beyonce boards, because you're right.
Yes.
Having to see the vision, write the vision, right?
That's it.
Seeing the
That's
writing
it.
on the wall, we know that that's real. So it's so interesting to kind of hear your process, because that is what creativity looks like, and like just raw creativity.
Right.
And it does take, I'm sure it does take a lot of coffee, but really, you're sharp and energetic, and you motivate me just in this conversation.
Yes. Good.
What else can I do? So it's really good to hear, and so I think that people need that. Everything that I've heard so far, just from what you're saying, I hear a teammate, I hear a boss, I hear a therapist, I hear a friend, and that's something that people don't necessarily have. You might have 3 out of those 5 things, but those other 2 things are really important.
Yes.
And come from a space where you can throw ideas on the wall and brainstorm and get to a place, have assistant, have that companionship to get to a place where you can be better and do better and execute on your dreams. That's definitely something I think that's needed, and I think that is in our community. Absolutely.
Thank
So
you.
we're so
I appreciate it.
We appreciate you. We're so glad to have you on. Tell us how people can get in touch with you. How can they pour into you? How can they get to know more about your program and all that you do?
Absolutely. So you guys already know I am here to help simplify the success of entrepreneurs. You already know the core theme and the one-liner I run with, that success is not difficult, it's not hard, but it is strategic, and strategy is my stroke of genius. So I really best benefit people who are ready to create or improve their profits in their business. Maybe they're looking to improve their business operations. Maybe they're ready to finally meet that money goal within their business. And they're looking to really get in front of that audience and stay in front of their competition. So the stuff you guys have on the bottom of the screen is sufficient. My web address, my website, themillionairemidwife.com, is how you would get in touch with me to either book a session. You can follow me on those social platforms as well. All of them, I'm at The Millionaire Midwife. And I look forward to serve whoever I can. So thank you again, Chloe. This was fun.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing the spotlight. And we hope to hear much more from you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed our spotlight sessions. We're going to go ahead and jump into our next film discussion. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start this session really quickly with a brief video that we've compiled from the Pink Butterfly Group and from members of our community, and we hope that you enjoy it.
You and me.
I am educated. You're talented, you're magical, and follow your dreams. Bye. Black girl, you are powerful, and I am enough.
Black girl, you are virtuous.
I am determined. Black girl, you are fearful and wonderfully made.
I am brilliant and I am beautiful.
I am a butterfly. I am a beautiful, black, outstanding, courageous young lady. No matter what you do and no matter what you look like, you are always beautiful, powerful, and unstoppable.
Black girl, you are kind. I am naturally beautiful.
Black girl, you are courageous and beautifully made by God.
Black girl, you are a social butterfly.
Black girl, you are unique, amazing, and no one can take that from you. Always remember that.
I am powerful and I am enough.
That you are amazing. You are loved. You are strong. You are God's children. And remember, there's nothing in this world that you cannot put your mind to.
Black girl, you are worth it.
Black girl, the future is in your hands.
My black is proud, beautiful. I'll say it out loud. I'm loving me.
You are smart.
I am loving.
You are intelligent.
I am creative.
You are caring.
I am smart.
You are
I am
beautiful.
Because you are. And you are.
Black.
All right. We out of here. NGA.
Peace.
I hope you guys enjoyed that video as much as we did making it. Special thanks to all of our participants for sending in your videos, sending in those positive affirmations. The conversation that we've been having so far is based on our HBC experience as a Black culture, the importance of our community and building up, encouraging one another, overcoming challenges, and moving forward. We have to empower each other, and we can do that with using our voice, speaking out. The more that we don't speak out, the more that our voices are bound, that might be a missed opportunity for someone to walk in their gift. And it might not be even for you. It might be for someone else. So we want to speak life. We want to speak positivity. We want to affect one another in a positive way. We want to teach our children to love one another, but among everything, to love God and to love themselves is such an important conversation to have. As we enter into our next topic, our next film discussion, Push Out. This film discussion is going to be centered around the criminalization of Black girls in school. So if you all have gotten a chance to see the movie, fantastic. If you haven't, not a problem at all, because we're going to talk about some very important pieces of this conversation to drive awareness and the importance of the topic itself. So I'll start bringing our panel in. We do have some folks that will be joining us from the previous panel. Danielle Mans will be coming back to join us. Thank you so much for staying on, Danielle. We know that you are a teacher, but you're also a mom. And so you work, of course, full-time with both of those jobs and responsibilities. But it's so important. It's important, I imagine, for you even the more, not only as a mother, but as a teacher and being that voice in the classroom. So
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We are also welcoming back Sharika Harrison. Minister Sharika Harrison is coming back on the line as well. Thank you again for coming back, chilling with us. Yes, and continuing the conversation. I do, of course, want to bring back Quatisha McMurtry, our founder of the Pink Butterfly Group. come on back in this room. Let's start this conversation. Also joining us, Crystal Galloway. Awesome. Crystal Galloway is a student, a mother of two girls, and a soon-to-be wife. She is the CEO and founder of Slimline Training Solutions. She is a woman of God who strives daily to be better than the day before. Thank you so much for coming on, Crystal.
Thank y'all for having me.
All right, next coming into the room, we have Minister Katrina Harrison. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
All right, Minister Katrina Harrison. What can I say about you? I can say a whole lot about Miss Katrina Harrison.
Oh.
But let me get to the written word. Minister Katrina Harrison has been a licensed minister for over 10 years. She serves as an associate minister at Jerusalem United Holy Church of America. She is the executive director of the Last Dons Incorporated, a confirmed 501c3 nonprofit organization, and founder of WATCH, Women at the Cross Healed Ministries. Katrina strives to live well, live wise, and live humbly, and as she serves the Lord our God. Thank you so much, Minister Harrison, for coming on.
Well, humbled to be here with you all.
And last but not least, well, before we move on, I got a little bit of feedback coming. Okay. I'm sure Crystal will be back. Last but not least, our last panelist, Angela McMahon, coming on. Let me get to her bio as well. Angela is a student pursuing her PhD at UC Berkeley, and she's focusing on cultural society and economic geographies. All right. Well, in the event that as we continue the conversation, we hope to see her join in as well. All right, guys, if you're just tuning in, we're beginning to start our next conversation, our next film discussion surrounding Push Out, the criminalization of Black girls in school. We are going to run a little bit longer just so we can make sure we give this conversation the attention that it needs to drive the awareness in our community. So, Quatisha, you want to get us started?
Listen, this film, you all, was very, oh, wow. It pulled on our heart, our purpose, I am excited to talk about this issue, the criminalization of Black girls. Seeing each and every one of you on the screen here, just to know the connection that you have to this purpose, right? Jumping right into it, the video, the importance of speaking, the power of speaking and just saying those, who they are, speaking who they are, who I am, who you are, and just to get the conversation started, what do they say about Black girls? What do they say? They say people, societies.
Like as I say, I think it depends on who you ask, right? Because I think society says that we're aggressive and that we're loud and that we're angry. But if you ask my daughters, right, they're going to tell you that they're beautiful, that they're smart, right? So like society is going to say one thing about us, but it's important for us to teach our children who they really are, and not to go with what society says. And yeah, we may have moments where we fit the stereotype, but me having a moment of being angry doesn't make me or define me as an angry Black woman. Right. So I think it's important for society to remember that. You see one moment where, Danielle had an attitude and I'm labeled as this angry Black woman. But that's not who we are. We're loving, we're genuine, we're caring, we're givers, we're fighters. You know, we don't give up. You know, we're strong. You know, Black women, we are everything, full of magic and spice and sugar and all of that stuff. So, you know, I think it's important that we rewrite that theme of what society says we are, because we're not, it's not just a negative connotation when you think of Black women. We're way more than that.
I think it goes back to, I agree with you 100% with everything that you said. When you even think about this country, the country was built on the backs of the Black woman, you know. So like when Kamala Harris became the vice president, it was rewarding, it was exciting, but it also was a moment of just having tears, because you recognize that somewhere along the way, we know as Black women that the fight is almost 100 times harder to manifest your visions, your businesses. If you want nice things, to create that and create that narrative, and then actually stick with it, and make sure that that's not only what you create for yourself, but also the perception of what people see of you. We know that that's got to be hard. And so, you know, my thing for her, and even going into people that we've seen in places such as Michelle Obama, you know, we look at those women and we're like, gosh, I would love to have a conversation with them to hear what the path was like, because we know it was not a straight path, but we know it was really narrow, and what type of criticisms that they have to come through to get to where they are, and understanding that, like she said, we're always, I don't care where you go, Black women are going to always be identified some kind of way as being aggressive or being intimidating.
Yes.
And it's not going to be looked at as assertive and knowledge. It's going to be looked at, oh, you're coming across, tone it down some. And the spaces, we're creating spaces for ourselves now. So that's the part, that's the excitement of being a Black woman, and knowing that we'll never change. Never. I mean, you know, I'm not going to stop being Black.
We continue to evolve in our own individuality. And to tag on what you're saying, we're trailblazers. You know, when you made mention of Kamala, you know, there was no one ahead of her to say, this is what's happening, or this is how you do it. She paved the way. So now we know the way. Just to know that I am here, you know, that right there is rewarding. I'm here. I have a voice. I'm going to shine my magic in a world filled with stipulations, things that try to hold us back, hurdles. You know, we're mothers, we're wives, we're business owners. Like you said, you know, I am here to create, and I have it all in my hands because God first has it in his hands, and he created us for greatness. He designed us to be great, to bring forth life, to sustain life, to nurture life, to build life. And that's who we are. We shine bright. We're some diamonds.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Oh, we could stay right there. You know, we could stay right there. It's not said enough. I don't believe it is said enough to get it through to our young people sometimes, you know, dealing with those self-conscious issues or self-confidence, because they need to hear it. They need to be told who they are while they're figuring it out, you know. Yeah. So in that, I'm gonna get Chris when she comes back to another question for her. But when you think about the in the movie or in the film, we see the adultification of Black girls, right? How we see them as being adults because maybe they have those responsibilities, or maybe the development of their bodies or things like that. Just giving your reflection, how does it fit in with the strong Black woman complex? You know, you never can be weak, or increased stress levels, etc. Chloe? Anybody want to jump in? Danielle? Yeah.
I think we're seen as older than we are, right?
Yeah.
So we're automatically given that responsibility, right, from a young age. So lots of girls are looked at older. So we start being responsible for things younger, right? So we start, your parents teach you how to, how to cook and how to, do these things. So we have to start earlier because, we are eventually going to have our own family. So, we're looking at those things and we're taught earlier. And so it starts at a young age. I have tons of students who, I got a girl the other day, she couldn't come to class, online because she's got to help her mom take care of 4 kids while her mom is working, right? Those are things that we deal with, as Black girls, even as Hispanic girls, you know what I mean? Like those are things that we deal with as minority women at a young age, being that help to mom and to the family. So, we start early. So we mature faster because of those responsibilities that we have to take on.
Yes, yes. As you say that, that makes me think about our Latino sisters and brothers. We see it often in the grocery store in handling business where the parents don't speak English, but the children do. So now you have a child handling business on the phone, taking care of paying bills, setting up arrangements, translating. So now you have a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old in the grocery store are handling business over the phone. And that child has to transition from managing things to now sitting in the class, learning math, learning science. And in that conveying and communication, I'm speaking to you in a manner of maturity and as if I'm an adult because I'm looking at you eye to eye because this is what I have to do outside, when I'm at home. And there was a place in the film where the young girl said, you don't know what we have to deal with out here. And to your point, you don't know about me having to change diapers, having to cook, having to teach my siblings how to do their work, having to shop. Parents are there, and it's far beyond that latchkey kid. Now we have children running the household, and not to mention the physical development. We are, as they say, what do they say? Cornbread fed. And sometimes we tend to look like it. And the young lady, she said, because I may be a little bit taller than you, I'm still a 10, 12, 15-year-old child mindset. So don't get offensive. And not to mention our culture. We're of a loud culture. You can have 10 people in the kitchen and you might think it's about 30, 40 people, but that's the culture that we come from. And I may not be smiling. My face may be a little bit strong, but let me live and let me be who I am. Black girls shine. That's it. Black girls shine.
Absolutely. This topic of discussion, we don't sometimes think about how those things that we see put on our young Black girls are still put on our strong Black women. And that's where, you hear strong Black woman and it sounds great, but then when you dig into it and you realize what strong Black woman means, and that now maybe you're, instead of wearing that proudly, you've been tagged with it like a scarlet letter, and that the expectation is for you to just be okay. And that conversation transcends to the medical community, to the justice system, just so many other areas that we see, just that misconception that everything is okay all the time because we can handle it. And so I want to get Angela, your take on this, because with your studies with, geographies and cultural societies, how does that play in? How does that stress level play into the psyche of our current culture?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I was listening to everybody's responses, and it just brought up so much, because what you ladies are referring to there's terms for it. There's research being done on it, and it's called, basically like your overall allostatic load, and like research currently shows that, Black women, are experiencing higher rates of stress. And then when you're exposed to repeated, long-term or chronic stress, that plays on you. And like, that's a wear and tear on your body. And then it begins to show up in different ways, unexplainable aches, high blood pressure, strokes, all these silent killers aren't so silent when you think about it. And like, racial discrimination, different things that we're exposed to growing up, things that continue to be exposed to us as adults, the way that it shows up and the way that it affects us is not affecting, other ethnic groups the same way. It's not affecting men the same way. It's not affecting, the women the same way. But, Black women, for some reason, we're impacted by it more. And then when you look at it, okay, this does have to do with racial discrimination. It does have to do with, situations that we're in or exposed to. I had a conversation with I guess I'll call him my sister's father-in-law, but he was explaining how, as a judge, there are situations where you do need to consider the, societal factors, your backgrounds and different things, like when people come into the courtroom, and, fortunately, African-American judges, they have some familiarity with these issues with, people of color, women of color are dealing with. But when you're in situations like, say like a white judge, because, history has shown us, yes, those are the people who occupied those seats. When they were making decisions on these cases, they were off of, discrimination. It was off of prejudice. And that's a lot of the way that the court cases turned out. So we're seeing that in the courtroom. We're seeing it in the classroom where, again, another situation where we're not being represented. So we need, I guess, just kind of just speaking to all of that, like, what does it take, or what is it going to take as far as being able to change the narratives that are going around about these young girls who are growing up to be strong Black women. And when you think about that, it's supporting them in different areas. How can we create, locations of healing for them? How can we let them know, yes, Black girl, you're strong, you are a star, you can do it. So it takes, it's going to take community, it takes the school, but a lot of it is just, understanding, again, like where these narratives are coming from, the media, the lack of representation in the history books, and like, what is that showing these girls, and how is that, affecting them? And then when they are growing up, again, these strong Black women, but they've been carrying it with them for so long.
I want to piggyback on that. And I think a comment just came up in regards to us not being able to experience the anxiety.
Yes.
As being a young Black woman myself, growing up, going through, the hardships, but also, every family dynamic is different. And so, being raised by a great grandmother in a home with, cousins and, different people, everybody's background is different, of course. So you're raised, and we expect, I think, as the Black woman, that this is just a part of life. This is just something that we carry naturally. We're supposed to. You're supposed to know how to wash dishes. You're supposed to know how to care for your kids and care for other people's kids and your siblings. And why have you not called to check on your family and all of those different things?
Yeah.
And we start to carry the weight and the load of our families on our shoulders. And then when we start to experience anxiety or dealing with even other different mental health issues, we're not aware of what that is, because for us, it's a part of what we've seen in our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunts, our uncles. And so I think that's another reason why it's hard to really address mental health in the Black community, because it looks normal. This is what we've come up under. And so anxiety in other cultures might look totally different as far as how it's tagged, but we are dealing with anxiety at higher levels, which means we have the increased stress and all of those different things, simply because we're not familiar with being able to identify that within ourselves. And so now working ourselves back from that is much harder, because we're not identifying with what it is until we're like in our 30s and 40s and 50s. And so, it's kind of hard because it's like, okay, then you have to break all the stereotypical things that you have embedded in your mind in order to be able to treat things like that. And so, it's really hard along with that, along with our DNA of how we're raised, and how we're thought of, and what's expected of us. When you look in churches, when you look in the workplace, when you look just in every area, you see that women, number one, are probably the prominent, the prominent set that you're going to see. I guess we're going to be the platform for whatever case it is. But on the flip side, it's going to go back into it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to break the narrative of what that looks like until we're able to go back and do that in our families and even in the history of how this country's history has been written.
And it's to comment on what you just said, being able to address some of those issues, those haven't necessarily been safe spaces. You're trying to go to a therapist. If they're not familiar with, yes, I have to take care, you going as a teenager, you having to take care of your siblings before you go to my computer. You have to take care of your siblings before you go to school, or I have this much. Like, if they're not familiar with it, how are they going to be able to help you address it? Or how are they going to recommend things that are foreign to them? So it's just like, trying to address that, you also have to be able to find places that you could safely do it in, without more labels being put on you or without you feeling worse before you went in there.
Yeah. I think it's breaking that thought process that going to a counselor, going to a therapist, it does not deem you crazy. It does not deem you less than. In the film, the young girl that left school, went to Walmart, went to a restaurant, she needed someone to talk to, in the hustle and bustle of living, being mom, being dad, working and supporting, there is a gap of conversation. Everything's good. Because if you think about a normal day, it's just myself. I don't have children, but I observe my sister, I observe my friends that have children. You're working, mom's working, dad's working, there's 2 kids, love is being spread. Okay, by the time you get up, say a prayer, hug, shower, you're off to school, everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. You come back home, you eat, it's time to rest. You have to fit in that conversation, and it's like, everything good, everything's good. And now children are seeing and hearing the challenges that parents are having, and it's like, wow. I mean, I'm just getting bullied at school. I'm not going to worry my parents with that. And that was the thing that was happening to her. Now I tell mom what's going on. The teacher calls and tells mom what's going on. She can use her words in a better way to project what I'm doing. So, as the parent, you're going to sort of listen and take in. We got to press pause and listen to these babies, because that was just one instance in the world that a kid left school 9 years old, and y'all didn't even realize it until 10 or 11 o'clock. And then when she called, the person called the dad, and he said, when's the last time you seen him? It's 11 o'clock. You said 9 o'clock. What? Where is that?
I think, going on what you said, we need to normalize therapy, in our community.
Yes.
I think it's seen as a stigma. Oh, you're going to therapy, you have a problem. You crazy. It's not that, right?
You don't trust God.
Yeah, right.
You don't trust God.
Right. That's it, right? And
Don't pray about it. Yeah.
It's more to it than that, right? Like, sometimes I think people don't seek that help and that counseling because my mama gonna say this and my grandma gonna say this and everybody's gonna think this. Like, we just need to normalize taking care of ourselves. Going to therapy isn't a bad thing.
No.
And I think that can help us heal as Black women, kind of heal some of those generational things so that I don't pass something to my children, right? Intentionally or unintentionally, you know what I mean? Go to therapy and kind of unpack some of those things so that you can pass on the right things and the right skills and the right knowledge to your children to help them be even stronger Black girls.
Yeah.
In the right way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then, even if maybe therapy isn't, your thing, because, some people just can't, I'm not going to sit here and talk to a stranger, but what other healthy outlets can, you teach young girls? I think this is what's so wonderful about the Pink Butterflies, because it's not just one approach, it's multiple approaches that they're trying to reach the girls with, to let them know, you know what, we value you and we hear you, and we want to be in your life. Because that was the biggest thing that stood out with little Samaya in the movie, the little girl that left school. And when you started to see a change in her, she said, I felt loved. So it's just like, we're sending our kids to school for 8 hours a day, and we don't know what's going on. Sometimes kids aren't able to express, you know what, something was said, like, you don't know. Like, I think about when I was in school, a teacher would say something, and I didn't realize later that, what, that was racist, or what, that was harmful. And with kids not being able, they don't have the language yet to be able to express that. So it's like, how else can we get them to, be comfortable, to get them to open up, let them know that, there's trust available, but more importantly, there's love available.
Someone had mentioned in the comment. I'm sorry. Someone had mentioned in the comments that, there's that thought, and you all could probably identify with, what happens at home stays at home.
Yes.
Right? And so that, lends to the idea that if you do need to talk to someone, there is something wrong with you, that everything is fine. And it's amazing that once you might, you become an adult and you grow out of that situation and you're exposed to different things, you're like, wait a minute, that wasn't okay. That wasn't okay. Maybe I'm more well-rounded because of it. But, to grow out of something like that, and to experience some of the childhood traumas that you might be exposed to, that our Black girls are exposed to, it is important to have that outlet and not perpetuate that strong Black woman scarlet letter. And so one of our other comments from Merritt Holloway was saying that the troop of strong Black woman many times robs women of their femininity and their right to experience anxiety like their white counterparts, unfortunately. It's not really a compliment.
And I'd like to just say right here, with someone who dealt with anxiety, and even after experiencing a divorce, the anxiety increased. And not knowing how to handle that, I felt like I was unraveling. Like, what do you do? Who do I speak to? Because everybody's not going to understand. I don't want to hear I told you so. I don't want people to know my business. All those things that I've been taught, but I still have to put on this face and be the person that I'm supposed to be when I walk out of these doors. And so, once I was diagnosed with anxiety and was placed on the medication, I remember even speaking to Minister Katrina and trying to identify with, should I do this? Because I'm hearing from my family that you're going to be crazy, or you don't need that stuff. That stuff is going to make you crazy. And I mentally had to begin to tear down even some infrastructures that had been built up in me through my family, and realize, gosh, it matters to me what they think. But I also know that it's my place to take care of me. Otherwise, I'm not going to be healthy as a minister. I'm not going to be healthy as a counselor, or even in personal relationships. So I have to take care of me. And, being able to do that, I'm able to communicate that effectively with other people. But it is a mental battle. And if you are not in an environment that allows you to have a mindset that focuses in on what you need, and you're constantly having to give out or protect yourself, then it's extremely hard. So I can only imagine what it would be like as young girls, still trying to figure out, we don't have the social emotional skills, right, to be able to communicate our needs, our wants, what's happening to us, what's going on with me, because I'm feeling it, and an adult can recognize it, still doesn't make it that right that I can understand it, or I can put to words what I'm feeling or what's happening to me. And so, I think society, this is something that we're going to be working on for a lifetime. But I'm like, Danielle, it's generational curses, and
Yes.
whether we are familiar with it, as far as I'm passing this down to my child, most times it's not. Most of it is innate. Most of it is in our DNA. It's because we've been around it. It's learned behaviors that we've seen. It's been in our families, and we have just learned to operate around it or push it to the back. But it's going to surface somewhere, so we're going to have to begin to deal with it. And that's
even
it.
scarier, right? Because you're not even aware
right
of some of the toxicity that you're passing to the next generation, right? Which is why, you know, it goes back to that therapy piece. Because sometimes I don't realize the effect of what I'm saying on my children, right? And if I don't have someone who can call me out as a, you know, non-biased person who can see like the bigger picture, I'm always going to continue to do that, not knowing. And so then I teach my kids that same stigma of strong Black woman. Oh, just suck it up. You be okay. At my mom's funeral, while I walked down the aisle to view my mom's body for the last time, I had someone reach over to me and pat me on my shoulder and say, "Get it together. You can't lose it like this." What? You know what I mean? It's that whole stigma in that moment where you should comfort me and hold me, and you know, you teaching me and training me like, suck it up. You can't fall apart. Yeah, you can fall apart.
Yes, you can.
And it's okay to fall apart. It's okay to have moments where you fall apart. It's not okay to live in that falling apart, right? So that's what therapy kind of is there for, and having somebody who can talk to you to know that it's okay to not have it all together. And I think lots of times we're taught as Black women, you have to have it all together. You have to make sure that everyone sees that you have it together. When you go to work, you got to have it together. You know, when you come home to your children, you have to have it together. And so it's not true. It's impossible to always have it together. Right?
Yes.
Right.
And we keep trying to do that, and we're killing ourselves trying to play this image of having it all together.
And internalizing all of it.
Yeah.
You know, just speaking of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Girl, I said I just said it takes all of us. You know, it takes that for that child who doesn't have that in the home. Why it's important for community organizations, for churches, for the councils at school, for that Black teacher who has been through that representation matter as well. So just, it takes us all together, you know. It doesn't have to be a burden, but it's so good to know if more people say it, it's okay not to be okay. You may not know that you need assistance, or somebody may not know until you speak up. But what we do see is you acting out, our grades dropping, you know, there are different things that are evident that there's something going on. And a comment came through from Ms. Crystal, was just saying they need transparency. Children, I believe, I've encountered them, they just need you to be real. They need you to say, that's exactly what I was dealing with. But, you know, just to get on that level with them and trust them. There was another comment that came through that's saying, you know, for children who do speak out, who do say I'm dealing with something, and then encounter a harmful adult, you know, so having those safe places, you know, that we strive to create with the Pink Butterfly Group for that safe place to have those resources for parents as well who don't know. Can you give me suggestions or help, or say what to do? So it takes a community, it takes those principals, it takes those social workers in the school, I believe, that we all come together for our future. And there was another question here I was going to give to you all about who does the responsibility lie in. But Chloe, after that, we'll jump into who the responsibility relies on, you know, which I believe I just covered, but it's all of ours. But, you know, just to speak on that piece as well.
Yeah. We had one more comment that, you know, it's so disheartening. Someone said that I had to keep seeing domestic violence at home and being molested quiet. Having a sibling that was suicidal had to be kept quiet. So as an adult, I had to deal with anxiety, PTSD, and depression. Therapy was something that I had to do to get back to me. It's a process still. So, you know, just really thinking about, I mean, you know, I can't imagine, you know, having to keep all that in, but you know that's that's a thing, you know. So whether it is any of those things, or it's even just something like, you know, somebody's sick in the family, you know, why do I have to find out that somebody has diabetes? Let's get some care, right? Let's start eating right. We're about to change up this whole diet in this house, but you want to keep things quiet and under wraps, you know. And so I agree with the comment of being transparent, that you really do have to have those conversations. You have to sometimes have the sobering conversation that you don't want to, but in order to broker, you know, just a new perspective, you have to say things that are hurtful. But it's all an effort to heal. Someone had mentioned in the comments that you have to fall apart to be put back together again. You know, so those are pains that, you know, we have to endure. I think that our parents, as a community, try to protect us, and sometimes it's protecting us too. You know, sometimes I believe that we get in God's way. You know, that some things are meant to be a lesson to us. You know, how can you get up if you don't fall? You know, so it's so interesting how all of this plays in together, and how important it is for us to have this conversation, how important it is for us to have groups. I'll say it again, like the Pink Butterfly Group, because we see these things, and it's so important to pour that power, to pour confidence into our young Black girls, because this is a demographic that even me seeing the movie, you know, it was still just eye-opening. You know, just that this demographic is lying right under our eyes, and they're so vulnerable, and they're so sometimes so helpless and looked over. And you know, going back to the adultification, that you know, either you know better, you know, just because you should know better. That's and you know, as teachers, as parents, as you know, people that are in just places of power, there's a responsibility to look deeper. And so my next question is just surrounding that: how do we get to a point, a better place, where we can provide a better space for our Black girls, where we have people who consider what it took for you to get to school?
I am going to say, because in the Black culture, right, the center of our lives has always been God and the church, right? And God and the church, when you take it all the way back to slavery, that's where they got their information. That's where they got the understanding of who God was, the word, and even going down through the years, everything funneled. The pastor was the counselor, you know, social work issues, like if you need resources or anything of that nature, that stuff was always funneled through to your pastor or to your church. That's where you went for your resources. And now we have generations that still want to live within that same paradigm, but then we have this whole shift where the culture, society, and everything has completely started shifting around, and the church is no longer the center. It's an option, just as a U-Ball or anything else is, or any other type of meditation or worship is. And so, you know, we have to start being able to have some of these conversations, and real conversations, even in the church, right? Because we're going to have our kids here, then we need to start developing them into holistic individuals, and not just spiritual beings, helping them, making them think that, oh, it's just all about God, it's about God. But when these natural things start to happen in their lives, they don't know how to handle it, because we have not made religion or Christianity practical for them.
I'm
So
so glad
it's
that
going to start in those places.
And there's a place of being transparent, you know, opening up, saying these things happen to me. X, Y, and Z happened to me. I can relate. I think it's learning to uncover, as we read about, uncover. You know, when we begin to step outside of the darkness and shed light on situations, it can no longer penetrate and attack us. We can begin to move forward and stand to fight in a healthy manner, fight in a manner where we can begin to not only listen to these children, but then to as well become a solution. And it may not always happen within the education system. That's where the Pink Butterfly Group comes in. It's a safe place where you can speak up, speak out. There are other organizations that are on the rise that are wanting to say, okay, we're opening up our arms, we're opening up our ears. But that's where the funding comes in, where we can begin to heal. You know, if I can see that you made it out all right, you know, it may have been some difficulties. You may have come through the rape, the molestation. You may have seen the domestic violence, but you can say it stops here. And when it stops when you've opened up your mouth. So now these kids don't think this is only happening to me. This has happened in the past. I can grow through it. And it's just like raising your hand and admitting I'm a survivor. And when you wave your hand and you admit that you're a survivor, you just waved your hand and you called a bunch of people that are in the middle of pain to see there's a light. There's a light. There's a light. Now you just got to go towards the light and be open and honest. More safe places. Let's talk about it. More creating safe places for our young girls, for our young men, even for our adults. We have adults, even in the comment, you know, it was the mention that things that they saw growing up. Hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people.
And policies too. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Just before, I just want to touch on that. Because even when we say, you know, safe places, you know, it does not have to be like a physical building. You know, I know we're used to running to the safe places, you know, but that safe place can be inside of you, you know, just letting that youth know that, again, you can talk to me, you can trust me. I'm not going to judge you. You know, I may be upset, but, you know, we can work this out because a lot of the things, it's like, yes, it's things that we saw growing up, our parents saw growing up. But then when you go a few generations back, we are back in slavery, or we are back in those times where it's just like, you know what? They didn't have the choices that we have now. They couldn't speak like we could speak now. And, you know, we're in a new, we're in a generation where we can begin to make those changes. And, you know, we don't have to tell the children anymore, you know, children are to be seen, not heard, you know, like we need to hear the children. And that's how we're going to begin to make these changes that need to be made.
Yes. And I appreciate too the to advocate for those girls, you know, just thinking that while I'm dealing with things, that setting things in place that's not so quickly to expel me, you know, or suspend me from school, so that I get a chance to get comfortable enough to say, y'all know what, I am dealing with some things. But you got in schools, especially, I appreciate a local school here who a policy was that they prefer to keep the child in school because they learn, which was Mall Street. You know, they prefer to keep their child in the school rather than suspended. Yes, it could be controversial, but if the child isn't getting the education, how are we going to be able to change anything? We just got finished talking about, you know, education being tied to, you know, poverty. So I appreciate a safe place also looking like those policies, things that, or give me a little grace, allow me a time to mess up. Don't be so quick to say, you know, I'm laughing. There was a example in the movie where one minute they were playing, and Katrina, you had mentioned this girl that they were playing, thought they were on drugs because they were happy. But the next minute you had an attitude with the teacher, and that too sent you to suspension. So there needs to be I agree and appreciate those type of things in our community where there are policies that keep our girls, protect them first. You know, it's our job to advocate and protect them first, understanding that they are working through this thing just like we are as adults. So
I think we need to do a better job in the schools too, right? Our kids spend lots of times in school, right? The majority of their day, like you said, is in a school building with people, right? So we need to make sure that we're training more teachers to be able to be equipped to handle these kind of things. We need to make sure that we're recruiting more teachers of color, because I mean, the research is out there. If a kid sees someone that looks like them and understands where they're coming from, they're more likely to be successful just by building relationships and being able to see themselves in that place, right? Like I have tons of kids who come to me just because I look like them. They don't know me at all, but such and such said that she talked to you and you look like me, right? So, we need to do a better job in the school system, just putting things in places for kids and building relationships with kids so that they know that the first response to them having an attitude isn't going to be you're suspended, you're in trouble, those kind of things. It really starts with that as well. School is, a lot of kids' safe place. It's where they eat. It's where so we need to pour into their souls as well. And I know it's hard for us as a teacher to juggle. We got to juggle everything. But, I have colleagues that I've walked in on a conversation talking about a kid who, he's late every day. Oh my God, and then he comes late every day and he doesn't have a pencil. Right. So I asked the man, I said, did you know that he catches 3 buses to get here because he's homeless?
Have mercy.
And they were like, what? I was like, some days I see him sitting in the Chick-fil-A to get warm before his next bus, right? So you're concerned about this little boy having a pencil, right? And so then when he finally gets to your class after all these obstacles, he's met with, nice of you to show up. Really? You know what I'm saying? We need to do better in the schools for our kids. That should be a safe place for them.
Yeah. It's a much broader conversation to have. And I think that the first step is doing this, like we talked about. It is bringing awareness to these topics, to this conversation, to this demographic, to the issues. And so I know we're coming to a close. We're going to be wrapping up here. This is a conversation that we're going to continue to have. There might be a part 2 to this conversation because we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of the criminalization of our Black girls in our communities. So I do want to thank everyone for coming on. Danielle, again, thank you so much. Angela, Minister Katrina, Crystal, Minister Sharika. Of course, I'm going to hand it over to our founder, Quatisha. If you can get us closed out and cue up our video.
Girl, you have been this was wonderful. I appreciate the platform with the Black Empowerment Week with the Next Generation Alliance. So this has been amazing. I'm appreciative. I'm so happy to see this Black excellence, just power, empowerment. And thank you, Chloe. I tell y'all, she holds us down. I tell you, the Pink Butterfly Group is so appreciative of the community and people that have sewn into us. So we're glad to be on here. I believe we're going to have, if it's okay, I would like just a quick prayer for our young girls, just to cover everything. And if Katrina could just do that. After that, we have a video. I know it's going to be really quick. And then we're going to pass it right over to the Next Generation Alliance brothers. So come on, Katrina, let's get these, cover these girls, Thank you,
man. Father God, in the precious name of Jesus, Lord, we just say thank you. We thank you for this time that has been set aside by the organization. We thank you for continuing to allow the surface to be scratched so that we can see and understand what's going on with our young Black queens, God. We thank you for continuing to open up the ears of those that can hear, that can make a difference. We thank you for putting action to the feet of those that can move out and start changing things and lining them up. God, light has been shed in the darkness. So we thank you for prevailing. We ask that you continue to cover groups like the Pink Butterfly Group, that they would have the means, God, the building, the resources to be able to pour into these families, not only the kids, but the parents, that they can come out shining. Lord, we thank you for continuing to allow this week of prosperity, of information to go forth, that we can be enlightened as a community. And we thank you for the grace and mercy that you always bestow. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all. We're going to go ahead and go over to a quick video, and then the next people you'll hear will be the Next Generation Alliance. Amen. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. while we're still here, the Pink Butterfly Group can be reached at the bottom. We are on Facebook at Pink Butterfly Group. You can also find us on Instagram. If you want to contact us, feel free to reach out.
To lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Phenomenal.
Thank you so much again to all of the people that have poured into this discussion, that have been a part of it, the comments, our panel. If you want to reach out to the Pink Butterfly Group, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram. We are a 501c3 organization, and we look to continue to pour into the community. Our Cash App is $ Pink Butterfly Group, all one word. If you'd like to pour into us so that we can continue to spread the awareness, to support our young girls, and to build a better future for us all. So again, thank you, everyone. Happy Black Empowerment Week. Have a good evening.
Great day.
How's everybody doing? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, wonderful, Sean. How you doing?
Oh man. First of all, before I get into all my thanks and stuff, this conversation was really needed. I have sisters, cousins, a mom, stepdaughters. This conversation isn't had. And the fact that it isn't had, it is a way to keep women suppressed, oppressed. It's a way to keep them down. I tell most women I talk to at any moment that if y'all knew the power that y'all really had and could display that power, y'all could really be what it's supposed to be. And the fact that to have people get on here and say, yes, I've been mistreated, molested, beat down on, talked to wrong. Like, I tell people like this, mental health is so strong and it's real that a lot of women hold it in until it's too late. And the last thing we need now with the pandemic and everything going on is the suicide rate going up. It's okay to talk. It's okay to talk. I wish more women would just go talk, get it over with. If any woman is watching and is listening to this right here, if anything happened to you, you tell it right then and there. Don't worry about what he say. Don't worry about his cousins, his uncles, none of that. If you got to, you can message me, Sean X Norman on Facebook. You can find me. You message me. You tell somebody. It is 2021. You do not hold that back, because if somebody do something to you, you get them now, because it always comes out that we're victim shaming. I mean, I got a mom, I got sisters. I know how it is.
That's right.
And I tell my stepdaughter at any time, any man ever touch you in any manner, you feel uncomfortable, you come tell it. Don't matter. You tell somebody. I mean, a lot of situations we see that, yes, the law is not on our side. I mean, Sandra Bland is a perfect example of the law not being on our side. So you go tell an uncle, go tell a cousin. Everybody got that one cousin. And all my cousins know I'm that one cousin. You come talk to me and you tell me what's going on. I'm that outlet. I'll be that outlet for any woman that's going through something, because y'all need that. You talk to somebody. It is okay to talk to somebody. I just wish that it's pushed more, that holding it in is going to hurt you more than it's going to help you. We've been so accustomed to being told that being tough, women are tough, men are tough, but that doesn't change at the end of the fact. You've been tough for 40 years and now it's too much on you. You go get some help. If something is happening to you, you go talk to somebody. If you don't want to take it into a lawful hand, you go get some psychiatric help. It is plenty of outlets. It is plenty of students who are going to school for this, who will reach out and talk to you about it. Talk to somebody. It is not shameful. It's not a problem. It is nothing to talk to somebody. Please, women, if anything, like this was so powerful that I hope my niece get to see it, because it's crazy, because it's really, this was like women empowerment tonight, because women did this. You know, Portia Paris, she helps us a lot. Man, she helps us so much. And we talk to her every day, a woman. And a lot of things that people don't realize, the women are really the backbone behind. Behind every great man, there's a woman. No matter where you at, who you're dealing with. But I don't want to get too wrapped up. I'm here to close y'all out. I want to thank the Pink Butterfly Group. I want to thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
I watched, when I was watching Push Out, like the first 30 seconds, I was like, man, that is our classrooms. That's our students. That's our Black girls. That's when they're being harassed in school and they go tell and don't nobody do nothing about it. That's our school system right now. So
today,
that right there, that's today, right now. And I watched women go through it, and I watched girls go through it. And I got an older sister, and good thing my older sister didn't have to go through it. And if she did, it ain't too late to tell her little brother now, because we can still do something about it. That's how it need to be. I want to thank Miss Carter. I want to thank Miss Scales, Miss McMurtry, Miss Harrison, Miss McMahon, Miss Cook, Miss Coleman, Mr. Carter, Mr. Josh, and again, Portia Paris. I want to thank my mama.
Okay.
I know she watching. Shout out to my mama.
That's right.
All my aunties, every woman in my life that have helped me, push me, empower me. Is women behind this thing, you know. Every man that you see that's just on the front page of this, we all have a woman behind us. So I want to thank every woman, and I just want, y'all can say whatever after this right here, but I just want to thank y'all, and I will be back to talk with y'all. I'll try to get some contact info so I can keep in touch with everybody, but I'd like to talk to y'all again next week. I have another woman on. I'm already in the works of that, but I want to thank y'all. Keep empowering each other, keep uplifting, and y'all be blessed. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Be blessed. Thank you, everyone. Again, thank you, Next Generational Alliance.